ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
You're listening to House of Cards.
Today, the game is different.
I want to gamble. Gambling is a very serious business. Is that clear?
Welcome to House of Cards. Dave Weishaupt with you here, deep from the swamps of Jersey. We've got a great show coming up for you. Daily fantasy sports has become part of the sports landscape. I'm sure we've all seen the TV commercials from FanDuel and DraftKings, and maybe even heard the radio commercials on this very program. But not a lot of people know how these companies became powerhouses in the sports industry. Coming up, I'm going to be talking with Albert Chen, who is senior editor and writer with Sports Illustrated. Albert wrote an incredible book detailing the rise of these two companies. The book is called $1 Billion Fantasy, the high-stakes game between FanDuel and DraftKings that upended sports in America. And after the break, Albert Chen is going to tell us all about these two incredible companies. So stick around. We'll be right back with House of Cards. Hey, this is Dave Weishaupt from House of Cards with your House of Cards gaming report for the week of February 19th, 2024. U.S. District Court Judge Madeline Cox-Arleo dismissed a lawsuit brought by a self-described problem gambler against the Borgata and MGM Resorts International. Sam Antar brought the lawsuit alleging Borgata and MGM plied him with offers to gamble despite knowing about his gambling addiction. In her ruling, the judge asserted that the rules and regulations on gambling in New Jersey do not impose a legal duty on casinos to cut off compulsive gamblers. Antar plans to appeal the dismissal of the case. The National Council of Legislators from Gaming States announced a partnership with the UK Gambling Commission. This partnership was created to analyze the current online casino gambling markets in light of the legislation that is currently used in the United Kingdom. The Council's main goal is to ensure that proper regulatory measures are taken with regard to gambling in the United States to create a positive economic and social impact. And finally, Ocean Casino Resort announced a partnership with chef and restaurateur Michael Schulzen for 2 new restaurants at the Atlantic City property. Pearl and Mary will feature a very impressive oyster bar, and Samuel's will reflect an all-day diner experience with an inspired American Jewish menu. Can't wait to check them both out. Have any news or tips regarding casinos, gaming, or legislation? Send us an email at newsroom@houseofcardsradio.com and follow us on X at HOC Radio. Sign up at jackpot.com and you can bet on the world's best lotteries where the biggest jackpots are up for grabs. Powerball, Mega Millions, some of the biggest lotteries can be found at jackpot.com. Simply choose your lotto game, pick your numbers, or use their quick pick feature, and you're done. Sign up at jackpot.com with code DRAW24 and get a free lottery ticket with your first deposit. Jackpot.com, it's the world of lotto in your hand. Terms and conditions apply. You must be at least 18 years old and in the United States to play. Void where prohibited. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. For more than 30 years, SCCG Management has set a standard of excellence unmatched in the global gaming industry. From startups to established companies, SCCG Management and its team of experienced leaders help each of their clients navigate the ever-changing, fast-moving business of gaming in all its forms. Sports betting, iGaming, esports, casino technology, SCCG Management provides a global network to connect its clients with the right strategic partners for growth on a global scale. SCCG also works with entrepreneurs, providing capital and resources to assist in the development of new and innovative products and platforms. Whether you're looking to enter the U.S. market, expand your reach to other parts of the world, or establish your business in the global gaming industry, look to SCCG Management for the guidance you need. SCCGmanagement.com. Expert solutions for strategic success. House of Cards is brought to you by BetMGM Casino. Play your favorite casino games at BetMGM Online Casino. Slots, table games, live dealer games, everything you love about Atlantic City and Vegas, all online at BetMGM. Go to BetMGM Casino, create an account using our promo code Turnpike, and become a verified player. New players get $25 free when signing up, plus a first deposit bonus up to $1,000. That's promo code Turnpike at BetMGM.com for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 plus $25 free. Must be 21 years or older to place a bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You're listening to House of Cards. Check out our website at houseofcardsradio.com.
Welcome back to House of Cards. Dave Weishaupt with you. Anyone out there who follows sports has heard of FanDuel and DraftKings. I'm sure you've seen the television commercials and maybe even heard me read some of those commercials on this radio show. But not a lot of people know how they came into existence or how they changed the sports scene forever. But now there's an amazing book that documents the evolution of these two companies, written by Sports Illustrated senior editor and writer Albert Chen. The book is called $1 Billion Fantasy, the high-stakes game between FanDuel and DraftKings that upended sports in America. And we are lucky to have Albert Chen on the phone to talk about it. Albert, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Albert, we were talking off the air, and I told you this is a fascinating book. What motivated you to write this?
Well, I think we were talking about 2014, 2015 specifically, and when you were getting sort of these requests from, whether it's FanDuel or DraftKings about doing advertising with you guys, and, maybe you didn't know the whole story of what these companies were or what these types of daily fantasy games exactly were. And then they had this explosion of advertising in 2015, and they were everywhere. And I actually started playing, because I'm a big fantasy sports guy, and started playing their product very casually in 2014, actually. And, I thought they were pretty fun, and I could understand why people liked, their product. Didn't love that I lost some money, while playing them. But, and then sort of fast forward to 2015, the fall, there's just like this onslaught of advertising. And that was when I had sort of developed some relationships with the companies, because I did a story for Sports Illustrated in 2015 as the industry was on the rise. And then in 2015, when the explosion happened, then it seemed like, okay, well, maybe this story's getting big enough for a book.
Like you said, before I got the copy to read these commercials, I didn't know what daily fantasy sports was. And when I heard of fantasy sports, I always thought about a group of guys in August meeting in a bar to do their season-long fantasy draft. So that was my concept of fantasy sports. When you first started doing this story with FanDuel and DraftKings, did you have some preconceived notion of what these two companies were all about, or did you go into, fantasy sports were the season long, and let's see what these guys are doing with regard to fantasy sports?
I had maybe some preconceived notions of, I thought, okay, well, clearly these guys know what they're doing, and, it's just very much startup story of just like few people with this passion for fantasy sports and passion for sports and kind of the entrepreneurial spirit, and let's see where this goes. So, I used to kind of hear that startup story again and again come up. Usually it's someone pretty passionate about sports. What was so interesting is that specifically in the case of FanDuel, it was actually 5 people from the UK who weren't sports fans, American sports fans at all. And in fact, the person who was behind the onslaught of advertising was a woman, a mother in Scotland who didn't follow sports, still doesn't follow sports. And so, my preconceived notions were turned upside down, and I think that's what kind of really attracted me to the story. And so what you have here, as I mentioned, FanDuel, UK guys who started this company, weren't sports fans, DraftKings, 3 serious sports fans, actually not sports fans, but 2 of the 3 were sort of big sports fans, but really 3 guys who were in Boston and big sort of startup guys who really had a dream of making this kind of almost like a Facebook of sports that really was a startup that was going to change the way people consume sports.
That's what fascinated me in the first place. I mean, you have two groups of founders. They have the same fundamental concept and same sort of business plan for their two companies, but they came from totally different backgrounds and I guess totally different approaches. Like you said, one were sports fans and the other ones were not.
That's right. And so what you get into now is a question of, okay, well, how did it actually benefit them that when they grew their business that they weren't sports fans in the case of FanDuel, which actually came, well before DraftKings, and they sort of grew their company in interesting ways where they were sort of, in a lot of ways, marketing to people like them who weren't sports fans and, okay, well, maybe our product can reach people who, aren't hardcore sports fans, but are looking for ways to, engage in sports or have skin in the game and be interested in sort of, being engaged with friends who are sports fans. So it's kind of like an interesting case study of two companies with completely different approaches.
Okay, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. See you on the other side.
With costs going up, Adam & Eve is the best deal around. With 50% off a sexy adult product at adamandeve.com. That's 50% off right now when you point the camera on your smartphone at the code on the screen. Don't get up. Just open your camera and point it at the screen. Hurry! You'll also get 10 free gifts, including free discreet shipping at checkout. This is your chance to get more for less. So scan now for 50% off plus 10 free gifts from adamandeve.com.
Drizzly makes it easy to shop a huge selection of beer, wine, and liquor from wherever I am. I just open the app, find what I want, and it's at my door in under 60 minutes.
Drizzly. Ding dong, Drizzly.
You're listening to House of Cards.
Where was the house? Where was the House of Cards?
Welcome back to House of Cards. Dave Weishuttle with you here. This portion of House of Cards is brought to you by SCCG Management, delivering technology-driven capability, expertise, and customer and business value to the gaming industry for over 30 years. For more information, go to sccgmanagement.com. For those of you just joining us, I am talking with Albert Chen, author of Billion Dollar Fantasy, the high-stakes game between FanDuel and DraftKings that upended sports in America. When both these companies formed, what were some of the challenges that they both had to face and overcome in order to get both their companies off the ground?
Well, a lot of it, really the crux of the thing, the tension and the conflict of the story is pretty much this question of, okay, well, like if you are, playing fantasy sports, that's kind of like this friendly competition, as you mentioned. I'm sure you have friends and who kind of fly in for an auction, and have 12 guys at a bar and once a year kind of like it's totally like a friendly sort of competition with, some money on but not a ton of money. So like what happened was these companies put a lot of money into sort of the stakes, so it wasn't just like this season long slog. It was like every day you put in money and you can win or lose based on what happens in that day. So if you got an NBA game that night, you put some money in on certain players, kind of like a fantasy team, but it's dependent on how they do on that specific day where you win or lose money rather than entire season. So the problem for them was suddenly regulators and lawmakers kind of looking at this and saying, like, why isn't this gambling? Gambling is illegal outside of sports gambling is illegal outside of, Vegas and Nevada and a handful of states. It certainly is far from, widespread in the U.S. So how are these companies permitted to exist? And so that was really their biggest question that they really had to kind of face a reckoning with once they had like all these ads in everyone's living rooms. Everyone was like, how is this legal? How is this not sports gambling? And that was a legitimate question.
It was interesting. Certainly finding funding for any startup company is a challenge. But I thought it was interesting the way they had to look for money when they had a product that was really in uncharted territory. What was their challenge in getting the initial startup and finding continued amount of funding?
Well, it was convincing people, investors with money, media companies, but also private equity and venture capital firms who just, have a ton of money and are looking for startups that have just massive potential. And I think what these firms and, investment groups and, essentially just backers who can really turn your startup from three guys in a closet spaced place in a townhouse into a company with, maybe 50 people or 100 people. So you have to sell them on upside. And what the upside was the fact that this thing is bigger than fantasy sports, actually. It's really about gaining people who are, again, sports fans who are just interested in having, making their, weekends, Sunday afternoons, watching NFL games maybe just a little bit more interesting or having reason to watch. And the reason to watch is to see if you're going to make maybe $5, $10, $15, $20. And then things got a little out of control with some people with, in some cases, hundreds of dollars and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars at stake. And the stakes just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so what the investors saw was, okay, well, if you have people willing to spend money and potentially lose money, and they're okay with that because it's an entertainment product. Well, if we get, 10 million people playing our product, well, that adds up to a lot. So it was really getting investors buying into this idea that, okay, this is actually bigger than just this kind of quirky, weird daily fantasy sports game, but it's something more massive. It's about fantasy sports, but it's also about really what effectively is sports gambling at the end of the day.
In my experience with daily fantasy sports, I found it to be a male-dominated type of business, but it's fascinating to see that it was a woman who shaped and influenced the business model of daily fantasy sports. And you mentioned her before. Tell me a little bit about Leslie Eccles, who was the co-founder of FanDuel. I thought she was the most fascinating person that you described in the book.
Yeah, I mean, what I wanted to do with the story is really tell the story just through a few characters. I don't think that, recounting sort of just the events and kind of painting a picture of like how these companies came to be in broad strokes would be sort of like a compelling book. You can kind of get that from, Wikipedia and just kind of reading about the companies. So really wanted to focus on the characters. And, as you mentioned, sort of like what sort of drew me into this story was really kind of telling the story through characters that you wouldn't expect to be sort of at the center of the story of startups and sports gambling and fantasy sports. And, Leslie Eccles is kind of like an extreme sort of example of, what these companies, and really, I mean, honestly, like kind of companies beyond FanDuel and DraftKings. I mean, there are many other companies that were sort of in this sort of race to win the market. And she, look, she's a woman, and this is a very male-dominated industry, and you're not just talking about fantasy sports or even just like, even the venture capital world, kind of sort of heavy on sort of, male-dominated space. So, she's former consultant, not a sports fan at all, but what she really was hyper competitive. And so the real tension of the story, and that's why things kind of spun out of control in terms of the competition between DraftKings and FanDuel, was her competitive nature, saying that, like, we're going to beat DraftKings, we're going to be number one in this. And so she led the marketing campaign pretty early on, and things kind of spun out of control from that. And yeah, I mean, it's really interesting how just like the decisions of just like a small group of people really dictated the fate of these companies and this industry, and ultimately kind of, made an impact on sort of the larger landscape where we are now today.
For someone who actually read the commercials and was asking producers, like, wow, I've never seen this many commercials come at us. I had to read 3 commercials an hour. What they did was they set up an account for me. They put some money in the account, and every commercial I had to read a script, and then they had a section where tell the audience Dave's personal experience with FanDuel over the weekend. I was like, wow, boy, it's pretty extravagant. But that was Leslie, right?
She thought that, well, if you hear sort of someone's personal experiences and them recount, hey, I won, $50 over the weekend, you can do that too.
I never won. That was the problem.
Yeah, but you probably could see how the ads were pretty effective.
While reading your book, I felt this tension that I'm sure the two companies felt about whether what they're doing was legal and considered gambling. I'm from New Jersey, and during that time, I was watching my local news because New Jersey was going through the court system to get sports betting legal. And without fail, the local news, let's go to a break. And without fail, there'd either be a FanDuel or a DraftKings commercial. And I think a lot of people thought, well, we're going through court and they're gambling right now. They're doing gambling commercials, but New Jersey has to go through court to actually do what these companies are doing. I mean, inside both these companies, was there a fear that what they were doing could end in an instant?
Well, there was so all the ads happened, and then, there was sort of this turning point where there was a kind of a scandal, really, that was kind of splashed over headlines regarding a player who, was alleged to have used insider information to win a lot of money. And so the allegation was that because he worked at DraftKings, he was privy to some inside information, and he was actually playing on FanDuel, and he won $350,000 on a tournament. So that set off a lot of red flags in the media, and then ultimately with, attorneys general across the country and just, Department of Justice, and what is going on here? Are these companies just fleecing their customers? And so once the states got involved and started actually shutting them down because there were concerns about initially this insider trading deal, which turned out to be, in that specific instance, there was an outside firm that determined that this was not, something problematic actually did not happen. But there was this kind of issue of employees playing these games on, their rivals' apps. So it was kind of like a strange dynamic that was going on. So that was the red flags of just employees winning a lot of money playing daily fantasy games. But then once the regulators got going, they were shutting the companies down because they viewed them as illegal gambling operations. And that's when it got really dicey for the companies. And yeah, it was life or death, waking up every day in late 2015, early 2016, and sort of wondering where this was all going to head within the companies. That okay, they were shut down in New York State, shut down in many, many states. Actually, it began to snowball. And that's when, it actually seemed likely that both DraftKings and FanDuel were not going to exist because there was no revenues. There wasn't really sort of any way that these companies were going to make money. So, yeah, I mean, it was really, really, really dicey there for a while.
Okay, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. See you on the other side. Sign up at jackpot.com and you can bet on the world's best lotteries where the biggest jackpots are up for grabs. Powerball, Mega Millions, some of the biggest lotteries can be found at jackpot.com. Simply choose your lotto game, pick your numbers, or use their quick pick feature, and you're done. Sign up at jackpot.com with code DRAW24 and get a free lottery ticket with your first deposit. Jackpot.com, it's the world of lotto in your hand. Terms and conditions apply. You must be at least 18 years old and in the United States to play. Void where prohibited. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Interest rates and inflation are out of control. Is your credit card debt also out of control? It's time to resolve your debt and take back control for a lot less than what you owe. If you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt, then you need to call us right now. Debt Fix Pros can significantly reduce the amount you owe, and you could be debt-free faster than you think.
I knew we had to do something. Our debt was growing.
It was getting out of control, and we just didn't know what to do.
We saw an ad for Debt Fix Pros. We called, and they showed us how fast they could get us out of debt.
It really was amazing, and now we're back in control.
Call now, and we'll show you how easy it is to fix your debt. The call and consultation are free. Call Debt Fix Pros right now at 800-479-3522. That's 800-479-3522. 800-479-3522.
With costs going up, Adam and Eve is the best deal around. With 50% off a sexy adult product at adamandeve.com. That's 50% off right now when you point the camera on your smartphone at the code on the screen. Don't get up. Just open your camera and point it at the screen. Hurry! You'll also get 10 free gifts, including free discreet shipping at checkout. This is your chance to get more for less. So scan now for 50% off plus 10 free gifts from adamandeve.com.
Every 40 seconds, a kid is reported missing. Find the Children provides educational material that teaches your kids how to recognize and avoid predators. Our recovery programs are very successful in bringing kids back home to their family. You can help protect our kids and bring the missing kids home safe by donating your unwanted car, truck, SUV, or van, running or not. We guarantee you will receive the maximum tax deduction. We provide fast free pickup, usually within 24 hours. Over 2,000 kids are reported missing every day. Call now to donate your vehicle. Donate now to bring these kids home safe.
Call 800-934-2260. 800-934-2260. 800-934-2260.
You're listening to House of Cards.
I bet you $20 I can get you gambling before the end of the day. No way. I'll give you 3-1 odds. No. 5-1. No. 10-1. You're on.
Welcome back to House of Cards. Dave Weishuttle with you. House of Cards is brought to you by BetMGM Casino. Play your favorite casino games at BetMGM Online Casino. Slots, table games, live dealer games, everything you love about Atlantic City and Vegas, all online at BetMGM. Go to BetMGM Casino, create an account using our promo code Turnpike, and become a verified player. New players get $25 free when signing up, plus a first deposit bonus up to $1,000. That's promo code Turnpike at BetMGM.com for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 plus $25 free. Must be 21 years or older to place a bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. For those of you just joining us, I am talking with Albert Chen, author of Billion Dollar Fantasy, the high-stakes game between FanDuel and DraftKings that upended sports in America. Well, let me ask you about that. The employee's name was Ethan Haskell, which was a very interesting part of the book. Were the states heading that way anyway, and did the incident with Ethan Haskell just accelerate the situation?
Were they headed in that way in terms of
really regulating and taking a hard look at these companies?
That's a great point. I mean, I do think that it was inevitable, and I think there was probably there was certainly like arrogance on the part of both companies, thinking that, we're just going to spend a ridiculous amount of money and, just bulldoze everyone. And this idea that they could just splash their ads everywhere and assume that everyone would just be fine with it was definitely pretty, really arrogant, and they would sort of admit that now. In terms of the employees, that was just a tremendous oversight on the company, part of the companies, where they just did not really sort of see this as a problem, when clearly, just from the outside looking in, if you have employees making more money, winning, these massive prizes than they were making at their day jobs, at the fantasy companies themselves, that is certainly would seem like a huge problem to you and me. But things were just moving so quickly where they just wanted to grow that they just overlooked this. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it wasn't going to be Ethan Haskell, it's going to be something else, for sure.
One of the epic battles that FanDuel and DraftKings had to fight was in New York. For those who don't know, what was New York's issue with regard to daily fantasy sports? And it seems like it's still going on in the courts of New York. What's the status of daily fantasy sports in the state of New York?
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, that's sort of where the main drama played out, was in the state of New York in terms of, because, obviously New York State is a big state, and, whether they were going to be allowed to operate in New York was really ultimately going to determine sort of the fate of the companies and what their really, viability was going forward. Eric Schneiderman, the Attorney General for New York, shut them down in, I believe it was November 2015. He saw all the ads, things snowballed, and his determination was that there was, a few things. I mean, the fact that certainly that these companies were kind of pretty clearly sports gambling companies, and sports gambling is illegal in New York State, that was a problem. But also the fact that, what he actually targeted was the advertising and kind of these ads telling you and me that we actually have a chance to win a lot of money. In fact, have a really good chance at that, when in actuality, the odds are pretty slim because, you're playing against people who really know what they're doing, and the odds are just really stacked against you. So ultimately what happened was that they settled. I mean, the two companies did pay a settlement with the state, and there was a daily fantasy sports bill that passed in New York, so that daily fantasy was legal in New York and in New York going forward. So that was sort of dicey, and that was sort of resolved in the fall of 2016. But now, there is a continuing drama. I think that it sort of changes every day in terms of daily fantasy. Yeah. But I think now we're getting to really what is the larger picture, and really sort of the more important sort of story is, sports gambling, because now FanDuel and DraftKings are sports gambling companies, and it really is about the legality of sports gambling in states like New York and states where it is currently illegal. It's legal in New Jersey. DraftKings and FanDuel are thriving in New Jersey because you and I can bet on our phones in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. But the question now is, how quickly are people going to be able to do that across the country?
You mentioned sports betting, and I found it very interesting in your book that you described the sports betting establishment in Las Vegas. How did they view daily fantasy sports? Did they see it more of a new opportunity, or was it a threat to their monopoly on sports betting?
Well, they certainly perceived it as a threat to their business in sports gambling. Now, I would argue, and I think a lot of people would agree with me now, is that in actuality, the daily fantasy sports product was not a threat because it was pretty small peanuts compared to what their business was. Now, yeah, was there a threat of them chipping away at their business and certainly potentially, you get into daily fantasy, you're ultimately going to be into sports gambling. I think that, that those are legitimate questions. But, Vegas, in terms of their casinos and their sports books, I mean, they certainly viewed these companies as a threat and were certainly, big adversaries against the growth that these companies were experiencing, particularly in Nevada. So, there was certainly, Nevada, shut them down, and for a long period of time, like those two companies, it's funny because the landscape changes so much that actually, I'm not sure in terms of daily fantasy what their current situation is in Nevada, but I'm almost fairly certain that they certainly in a number of states, FanDuel and DraftKings are not able to operate their daily fantasy operations. But what I will say is their business is really about sports wagering going forward, and that is now sort of the big play for not only them, but certainly for Nevada, those casinos there, and for these major gambling companies and entities and media companies going forward.
I got to ask you, in your opinion, would we have sports betting today if DraftKings and FanDuel did not come out with daily fantasy sports? I mean, did the daily fantasy sports allow for an easier transition to sports betting?
Well, I don't think anyone says the transition was easy, certainly for these companies, but I see your point. It's a great question because things, I think did accelerate faster. No doubt they accelerated faster than what any of us expected. And it is a good question. We certainly would not be in this exact point without these two companies. I do think what's interesting is, New Jersey is a good example and really at the forefront of what things are, the way they're headed and the way where we're going forward. And look, DraftKings and FanDuel are the two biggest players. FanDuel is the biggest in New Jersey. And so, given that logic, I think certainly going forward to view these two companies as positioned to be very well positioned to be the two main sports gambling players in the country tells you all you need to know. I mean, I think that, they are well positioned in terms of getting their customers. And the awareness that their ads did was just at least get the conversation going. You had a lot of media covering sort of the intersection of money and sports and mobile sort of games. And so it was just in the conversation and certainly got on the radars of states. So that really sort of accelerated things in a large sense. Now, I do think sports gambling, nationwide is inevitable, but, we're still at a point where in New York, you can't wager on your phones and have to go to, these two casinos upstate to do it. And in the vast majority of states, sports gambling is still not legal.
You mentioned it. Not only FanDuel and DraftKings are the top daily fantasy sports providers, but they're also two of the most successful sports books in this country. I got to ask you, would one company be as successful if it wasn't for the other one being there? I mean, do you think they drove each other to the success they enjoy today?
Well, it's not only driving each other to the success, and that's a great point because it really is like an escalation that they just were hyper competitive and just went after each other and spent a lot of money and got that awareness out there. But, on the flip side is they would not have had, they were really in turmoil in 2015, 2016, and they would not sort of be in that position to the point where they really almost were completely decimated. And they wouldn't have been in that position without sort of the hyper competitiveness between the two. But, they pushed each other to innovate, to really sort of get going in terms of innovation and really pushing each other to just be as the best version of this that they could possibly be. So in that sense, I think they pushed each other without question. But yeah, it was really, this hyper competitiveness, in one sense, they're still standing and well positioned, but in another sense, they were really battered in ways that they, I think a lot of the employees still go through PTSD in terms of some of the just, they had questions about whether some executives were maybe even going to go to jail. So that was really sort of, it was a traumatic time personally for a lot of people within the companies.
I got to tell you, it seems like these two companies are always in the news. I mean, I guess last month we had a husband and wife reality star get denied $1 million from DraftKings because of suspected collusion. Is it just the nature of their business that there are always going to be controversies regarding their services?
Yeah, I mean, look, whenever money's involved, there's going to be controversy. And I think like the main controversies going forward, these two companies and every gambling entity is that's really sort of, I think, what next wave of problems is like, how is this going to affect, people's lives and potentially like damage people's lives? We know that it's good for teams in the sports industry. There's a lot of interest, and that's great for a lot of people. And there's a lot of people are going to make a lot of money. But I do think there are going to be a lot of negative effects. And I think that people who bring up those points, as long as they know what they're talking about, have really good concerns.
Give us an update on some of the main players from FanDuel and DraftKings. I know Jason Robbins is still with DraftKings. However, Nigel Eccles and his wife Leslie are still fighting to get proceeds from the sale of FanDuel, which is amazing. Can you give us an update on what's going on with everyone involved?
Sure. So in terms of the founders of DraftKings, I mean, all three co-founders are still there. As you mentioned, Jason Robbins is CEO, and the company's doing well. I mean, it's positioned well as a sports gambling company going forward. They did raise a lot of money, so there's a lot of questions about at what time is this company going to be profitable. But in terms of awareness and their sort of footprint in the landscape, they're in good shape. FanDuel is doing exceptionally well as a company. I think that a lot of people view them as potentially better positioned than DraftKings potentially in a lot of states, certainly in New Jersey, where I think like that's like an important place where this war is taking place. They've done extremely well, and but all five co-founders of FanDuel are no longer with the company. As you mentioned, there is a lawsuit that was recently filed that includes the co-founders, but also 100 other former employees. Essentially, they just want their piece of the pie because FanDuel, they were acquired by a UK sports betting titan out there, and that was a big moment for the company. But a lot of the early sort of stakeholders were shut out. And look, I mean, it's certainly tragic that a lot of these co-founders were shut out and don't, are walking away with nothing from that big acquisition. Others would argue, and certainly this is the FanDuel argument, is that, look, this is the risk you take when you raise hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, is that your stake of the company gets smaller and smaller. Now, so that drama is still yet to be played out, but in terms of the story of the five FanDuel founders, pretty satisfying ending in that, their story is over. They left their industry and the company, and now really it's just like a question of how much money they're going to get out of this, if any, at the end of the day. Now, what their achievement is pretty, I think deserves certainly recognition, and like it's an incredible story of five people who kind of had no interest in sports and really sort of building this company that is really well positioned to be a dominant player in sports gambling in the United States.
Albert, we're running out of time, but I want to remind everyone the title of this amazing book is $1 Billion Fantasy, the high-stakes game between FanDuel and DraftKings that upended sports in America. Albert Chen, you wrote a fascinating book, and I urge everyone to pick it up because you will not be able to put it down. Albert, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
We're going to take a quick break. See you on the other side.
Attention. If you owe back taxes to the IRS, watch this urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by hiring 87,000 new agents to garnish your paycheck and put liens on homes and businesses. They can even seize your bank account. The IRS calls it enforced compliance, and now they have the manpower to get you. Penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily. So call One Stop Tax Relief Shop and get the IRS off your back. They're experts in the Fresh Start Initiative, one of the biggest breaks the IRS has ever offered. And no other tax shop gets you more or faster approvals. One Stop Tax Relief has resolved thousands of cases since 2014 and saved clients millions of dollars. Call now for a free consultation. Connect with tax professionals who get the IRS off your back.
Call 800-605-0688. 800-605-0688.
One Stop Tax Relief Shop.
It's a casino. People gotta win sometime.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a giant, colorful check to deposit.
Welcome to another edition of Beating the House. I'm Doug Weishuttle here with Dave Weishuttle. We're going to be crisscrossing the country, the continent, sometimes the world, talking about the latest jackpots coming out of the lottery and the casino industries. If it's $100,000 or more, we will be talking about it on this show. Before we get to the jackpots for the week, we do want to introduce a new partner to the Turnpike Sports family.
Yeah.
Jackpot.com has joined the family.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of lotto going on in the world of jackpots, and there's a whole lot of jackpots going on right here in your hand with Jackpot.com. Sign up at Jackpot.com and you can bet on the world's best lotteries where the biggest jackpots are up for grabs. Powerball, Mega Millions, some of the best and biggest lotteries can be found at Jackpot.com. Simply choose your lotto game, pick your numbers, or use their Quick Pick feature, and then you're done. Sign up now at Jackpot.com with code DRAW24 and get a free lottery ticket with your first deposit. Jackpot.com. It's the world of lotto in your hand. We're going to start off this week heading over to Nevada, the home of the big game that just happened this past week.
Yeah.
And, I think there was some football game that happened over there.
Right.
Everybody got so excited about it.
I have to tell you,
it was just a football game.
I'm expecting some big reports about some big jackpots in Las Vegas because everyone's there, and by all reports, the weather is terrible. It's rainy. It's kind of cold for Las Vegas, so I expect everyone to be inside in the casinos on the gaming floor winning a lot of money. That's my thought.
Well, our first reports this week are from Caesar's Palace on the Strip.
Okay.
And this is the weekend before the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Okay.
We've got two Caesar's Palace guests, both winning, one on a Friday afternoon, one on a Saturday night. Slots player, $181,250 on a Friday at 5 p.m. at Caesar's.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have a poker player.
Okay, good.
Winning a mega jackpot of $181,502.
Okay, good.
Playing playing poker. They placed down the 3, 7 of diamonds on a blazing 7 side bet while playing poker.
Okay, so this
is a table game.
Oh, it's a table game.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the poker room.
No, this was not in the poker room.
Okay.
This is kind of
Was it called Blazing Sevens?
Blazing 7 side bet.
Okay.
This is one of those weird side bets that this is actually a blackjack game. Blazing Sevens.
So
this is not a poker.
Yeah, so this is one of those games that kind of combines poker and blackjack.
Right, when you do
like
the Blazing
it's
7
a blackjack,
side bet.
but then you do a side bet, and if you get a good poker hand that beats the dealer, something like that. So
not only do you do a blackjack, then a side bet, which turns it into a poker game. Certain side bets trigger the progressive jackpots. This was just a mega jackpot.
Okay, so how much did
181 grand?
Wow.
Yep. 181,000 seems to be the
so
the theme for
was that the table game player or was that the slots player?
Both. They both won 181,000.
They both won 181,000.
Yes. The slot player won 181,250.
Hey.
And the poker player won, I can't keep calling him a poker player. It's a table game, guys. $181,502 for the poker player, if you want to call him a poker.
Well, just to differentiate.
Yeah. So. But the release noted that this was the second time in the past few weeks that players have won six-figure jackpots right after each other.
Let me tell you something. The reports are still coming out, but I expect a lot of jackpots coming out of Las Vegas that Super Bowl week, and I know I said Super Bowl, the big game week. And because you know what? Yeah. Like I said, the weather's not great. People are inside. They're enjoying Las Vegas. A lot of people are in town, and so, hey, win some money.
And not only did you have the Super Bowl weekend, you had the big game week.
Big game week.
That sounds horrible to say that, but anyway. But regarding those two other jackpots, they were won at the Suncoast, and we had them last week.
We had Suncoast last week.
So we're going to do something a little different on this next one. We're leaving the casinos and we're going to an online casino.
Okay.
We have DraftKings. They released a list of their biggest jackpots in January.
Good. Yeah,
I thought this was a very interesting
you
list.
You reported on a lot of these jackpots.
Yes.
So, pretty good. So, how many states are they in? I'm seeing you gave me a list of the jackpots for DraftKings, and there are a whole bunch of states, and even in Canada.
They're in 5.
Okay.
4 states, Canada. So five jurisdictions.
Okay.
Let me put it that way.
I should call it jurisdictions.
There you go. That's better. Now, these are in no particular order. It's just they put out some of the biggest, a list of the biggest jackpots won in January.
All right.
Going to start off with a Pennsylvania winner winning on Cleopatra. That's kind of interesting because a lot of different places have Cleopatra 2. DraftKings is one of the few that has both.
Oh, okay.
Cleopatra, $2,031,472.53.
Pennsylvania, right?
Pennsylvania DraftKings. Now we're going to the DraftKings Michigan family over there. We have the game of 777 Surge. $1,598,396.22.
Mm-hmm.
Doing our first Ontario jackpot in the list, Blackjack Blazing Sevens.
Oh, okay. That's
the blackjack that turns into poker.
You just reported it.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, now I got to play it. I guess
this is the online version. This is the online version.
I should do the online version.
$178,113.74.
Okay. All right.
Going back into the United States here, we've got Pennsylvania with Cash Eruption giving a player $2.3 million. And back over in Michigan, Cleopatra 2, $1.65 million.
Okay.
West Virginia, the first West Virginia entry here. We've got DraftKings Digits.
I don't know.
No clue what that game is.
No clue.
But it's one of their exclusive games, obviously, because it has their name in it.
Guess so.
$513,000. Then you go over to New Jersey. We've got Extra Chili Megaways, which we did report on. $351,882 there. Going over back to Pennsylvania now, we've got Gods of Troy, $830,531. Back to New Jersey, another Extra Chili Megaways. We did this one as well, $355,826.73. Roller Wheel Jungle Roll is a game that's on the Pennsylvania DraftKings.
Okay.
$846,000.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm rounding these off.
Yeah,
just
no,
to
I
make it easier on myself here too. Back in Michigan, we have Masai Mara Megaways. No clue.
All right.
$557,000. And then we're going to end up back in New Jersey. We have Ultimate X Poker Triple Play, which is a video poker game.
Okay.
$606,000.
Wow. What a great January if you're playing on DraftKings. Huh?
Yes. Well, these aren't all the same player.
Oh, no. I know
obviously
that. Yeah,
not.
Obviously not. But, no, I got to play some more on DraftKings. I enjoy playing online casinos. I haven't been into DraftKings too much because there's a lot of stuff we can choose from in New Jersey, but I got to check this out more.
We got a report from Arizona Charlie's for their January totals that they gave out in terms of jackpots. $2,484,350 given out between the two properties in the month of January. It was $2,079,000 from slot jackpots, $405,000 from bingo.
Wow. So is it like the first week in February, everyone gives out their jackpots for January? Is that what happens?
Pretty much. Okay. And we'll be getting more of those as we go in, too.
All right.
Now we're going to go to our bi-weekly or bi-monthly edition of Jersey Jackpots.
Ah, yes, Jersey Jackpots.
Now, we had done Jersey Jackpots a while ago, and it was a short one because they only had a couple days' worth of January reported. We now have gobs of January reported.
Where does this one start from?
This starts on January 6th.
January 6th.
And the last one we have is January 21st. There's more after January 21st, but they're under 100,000. The Division of Gaming and Enforcement over in New Jersey reports everything 50,000 and up. We do only 100,000.
Okay. Well, I'll be quiet and let you run through Jersey Jackpots.
Starting off January 6th, Hard Rock Atlantic City. Light and Wonders Firelink Cash Falls paid out $108,035.70. January 7th, we've got two of them. We've got Play MGM Casino for both of them, which is BetMGM Casino's online site. $135,344. NYX Gaming's Desperados Wild Megaways. $105,415.56. Playing Evolution's Santa Spins. By the way, that answers your question of regarding the Christmas games. They are still there and active,
and they're still
paying
giving out.
Yeah,
so
Santa delivered another gift to somebody in January here. So
nice.
January 8th, we've got Betfair Casino paying out $125,750 to a player playing Evolution's live dealing lightning dice. Craps game.
Yeah, I got that from the dice word.
Dice doesn't always
equate
to
lightning roulette, so that was.
Let me tell you something. Dice does not always equate to roulette. There are other games that use dice. So
no, I played roulette.
Yeah, I'm just saying lightning dice doesn't mean it's craps, but this one is craps.
Yeah.
Over in January 11th, we've got $153,192.59. Again on Betfair Casino, which is also FanDuel, playing Evolution's Mercy of the Gods.
Okay,
that's a very interesting game by itself. That's the Greek mythology themed one. Now, for some reason, January 13th seemed to be a huge day for jackpots.
I heard that. Someone told me January 13th. Apparently, lucky 13. A lot of people won a lot of money on that day in New Jersey.
Well, we've got 6 jackpots of $100,000 or more to talk about here, but
only on January 13th, right? But there was much more.
There were another 5 or 6 of 50,000 or more listed.
So
in this,
I don't know what was going on in January 13th.
Well, let's get through the 6 right now.
All right, go ahead.
$105,552 on FanDuel Casino playing High Five's Da Vinci Deluxe Ways. That's a fun game. It's all art related, Da Vinci stuff.
All right.
$110,610 DraftKings.com. Digital's Fishing Bigger Loaded Pots.
All right.
As you can imagine, that's a fishing theme.
Theme, I guess. Yeah.
Now here we have our first millionaire. Golden Nugget Atlantic City, playing Light & Wonder's Willy Wonka, I Want It Now.
Okay. There's a ton of Willy Wonkas out
Yes.
there. I don't know. I don't even know which one this is, but I was down in Atlantic City a couple days ago, and there was a ton of Willy Wonka slot machines.
Well, isn't this that the line said by Veruca Salt? I Want It Now.
Oh, okay. I got it now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And also I noticed when walking by a couple of the Willy Wonkas, they all have the Oompa Loompa bonus features.
Yeah, they had the Oompa Loompas.
Yes.
I saw that.
This is the first jackpot of the year of $1 million or more, $1,349,213.94.
A golden nugget, right?
Yes.
And Willy Wonka.
And I wonder if the winner said, I want it now.
Yep. They got it.
$104,000 at Play MGM Casino, Bet MGM Casino, really Novamatic's High Seas jackpots. Now, last year, towards the end of the year, Novamatic America came out with a whole bunch of pirate-themed.
Okay.
And we were seeing a whole lot of them paying out. And now we have another High Seas jackpot, $104,000.
Okay.
$100,143 on BetMGM Casino, playing Spin Games Full Force Good Deal Link. Haven't played a Spin Games game yet.
No, I don't. Maybe I have. I don't know. There's a lot of games I played. I don't know.
You don't pay attention to the loading screens?
I probably should, but I really don't.
Those companies put
There's
so much.
many out there.
Yeah.
I just, you see something that catches your eye, you try it out. I don't even know some of the names of them. Something catches my eye, and I want to check it out.
These companies put so much money into creating those graphics to launch their games.
Blow right by it.
Exactly. Last one, $100,000 on BorgataCasino.com. We haven't done a BorgataCasino.com. NYX Gaming, Jinjiao, Baoji, and those treasures.
And by the way, all those were just January 13th.
Yes.
Those were the 100,000 in January 13th.
Right. There was a lot more
50,000 on January 13th. God knows what was going on January 13th in New Jersey.
Real quick here. January 14th, $114,000. Again, BetMGM Casino. Novamatic's High Seas Jackpot. Mm-hmm. January 17th, $105,552. Playing High Five's Da Vinci Deluxe Ways from FanDuel. January 18th, $100,100, BetMGM Casinos playing IGT's Wheel of Fortune on Tour. Oh. That's the brand new Wheel of Fortune brick and mortar slot.
All right.
But they also have it online.
Okay.
So BetMGM is carrying that one. January 19th, first Buffalo game we're going to talk about.
Oh.
BetMGM Casino, Novamatic's Diamond Cash Mighty Buffalo. You thought I was going to talk about an Aristocrat game, but this was Novamatic.
I have to tell you, we went to Atlantic City with our parents, and that's what Mom hit the gaming floor, and I was like, where are those Buffalo games? I want to try those Buffalo games.
And I just looked at her and said, which one?
She was playing Buffalo games.
Yeah.
So,
she tried a couple different ones. She tried a couple different ones, too.
Yeah, so she went off and played Buffalo slot machines.
She actually started off with Buffalo Ascension.
Okay.
Then went to Buffalo Chief.
All right.
And then there was another Buffalo after that. But she
Okay.
stayed with the Aristocrat one. So, that
Okay.
she seemed to like the Aristocrat ones more than anything else.
Okay.
Last one, January 21st, $125,000 on BetMGM.com. Again, playing NYX Gaming's Dancing Drums.
Okay.
Last entry for the day here. We've got a Michigan lottery story. A woman who had picked up a lottery ticket on her way to work actually cashed.
What do you mean?
She went into work. She was going into work. She bought a lottery ticket, Club Keno ticket, and it cashed right before she got to work.
Okay.
$410,125.
Did she keep on going to work? Or?
She called in and had a sick day.
Oh, good for her.
She didn't tell her boss what was going on. She just said something came up with regards to home, and she just had to take the day. So she took a sick day and went and had a good time winning the $410,000.
Exactly what I would have done.
You don't hear too many people saying, I took a sick day because I didn't want to tell my boss what happened in a press release.
First off, I mean, you want to collect yourself. I mean, you want to compose yourself. I'm sure, that was kind of an exciting moment for her, and I'm glad. Hopefully, she pulled her car over and then looked at it closely and then called her boss. But good for her. She did the right thing. Exactly what I would have done, and take the rest of the week off.
I think she is. But she said she bought the ticket. She hit 8 out of 8.
Mm-hmm.
And she said she was watching it on her app as she was going to work. I don't know what that means.
Okay.
I'm hoping she was looking at a stoplight, or she was in the parking lot,
or she's public transportation,
or that's too
something like that.
She didn't say how she was going to work. She didn't say whether she was driving, but she picked it up on her way to work. So she could have been walking.
Who knows?
And then public transportation,
whatever. So
congratulations.
The important thing
there.
is she won the $410,000
and had enough brains to take the sick day.
God!
How could you concentrate on work?
What a great day! Yeah, what a great day! Can you imagine sitting in work all day?
Yeah,
and you have a $410,000 ticket in your wallet or your pocket or your purse. It's incredible.
And quite honestly, I don't know what she does for work. She could be sitting in a cubicle. That would drive me nuts, knowing I won that kind of money and I couldn't do anything.
Sure.
And also, the Speedy Q Market where she bought it is going to get I think they said a $10,000 bonus.
Good.
For the sale of the ticket.
Good for them.
So
everyone wins.
Exactly. Call in sick when you win.
Absolutely. Definitely.
That's the one thing I you buy it on your way to work. You win on your way to work. I don't know how many people would go to work. I mean, I would think 100% people would not go to work.
No. I would call in sick. I'd have to figure out what I'm doing with the money, where bank, and splitting it up, doing whatever. Call if you have a stockbroker or whatever, or do whatever.
A financial planner.
Yeah.
And an attorney.
Yeah.
So you need both of those.
410 probably doesn't reach that level of a couple million that you have to worry about, but it's a big sum. So, you have to figure out what you're doing with it.
Well, that's it for this week's Beating the House. As always, we only do $100,000 or more. There's a lot more winners out there that have won sums below that. So congratulations to the people we talked about today. Congratulations to everybody else out there. We love hearing all the stories. And we'll see you again next week.
Well, that'll do it for us this week. We'll see you next time with House of Cards.
Drag us by the chain.